The office was quiet that late afternoon, the kind of silence that only arrives when most of the staff has left for the day. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly above, and somewhere in the background, the hum of a copier finishing its last duty of the day drifted down the hall. Ethan, just 20 years old and fresh in his new internship, shuffled papers nervously at his desk. It was his second week working under the CEO of one of the city's biggest firms, and already he felt the weight of high expectations pressing down on him. He wanted to impress. He needed to prove he wasn't just another kid running errands. That's when he heard her voice. Smooth, low, and commanding, yet with a lilt that made his stomach tighten. "Come in my husband's office." Ethan looked up, startled. Standing in the doorway was Isabella, Mr. Blackwell's wife. She wasn't the type of woman you easily ignored. Brunette, with hair that spilled down her shoulders in loose waves, eyes the color of rich espresso, and a presence that seemed to make the very walls lean in closer. She wasn't much older than 35, but her elegance made her feel untouchable. Me?" Ethan asked, pointing awkwardly to himself. "Yes, you," she said, with the faintest smile tugging at her lips. "I need a hand with something." He followed her into the CEO's office, his shoes sinking slightly into the expensive carpet. The air smelled faintly of leather, wood polish, and her perfume subtle but intoxicating. Isabella walked with the grace of someone who had long known the effect she had on people, her heels clicking softly against the floor until she stopped in front of a massive oak desk. She turned to him, crossing her arms in a way that drew his eyes exactly where they shouldn't be. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. "What did you need help with, Mrs. Blackwell?" Her eyebrow lifted at the formality. "Isabella is fine." She let the words hang there, watching his reaction. "My husband left some files I need to review, and I can't find them anywhere." "You're his intern, you know where he keeps things, don't you?" Ethan nodded quickly, moving to the cabinet near the desk, grateful for a task that let him look anywhere but directly at her. His fingers trembled slightly as he flipped through folders, pulling out the ones marked with the date she mentioned. When he turned back, she was leaning against the edge of the desk, watching him with that same unreadable expression. "Thank you," she said softly as he handed the papers over. But instead of taking them right away, she let her fingers brush deliberately against his. The touch was light, fleeting, but enough to make his pulse jump. He looked at her, unsure, caught in the warmth of her gaze. "You're nervous," Isabella said, tilting her head. "Why?" Ethan gave a nervous laugh. "I guess I just don't want to mess anything up. This job means a lot to me." She smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made him both uneasy and unable to look away. "You're doing fine. More than fine, actually. My husband speaks highly of you." The compliment sent a rush of pride through him, but before he could thank her, Isabella leaned just a little closer. "You remind me of him when he was your age, ambitious, a little shy, but with potential." Her eyes lingered on him in a way that left no doubt what kind of potential she meant. Ethan's throat felt dry. He wanted to step back, to create space, but his feet wouldn't move. The office felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. He could hear his own heartbeat thudding in his ears. "Isabella," he said carefully, forcing the word out as if it weighed 100 pounds. "I don't think—" She held up a hand, silencing him. "Relax," she whispered, her lips curling in a mischievous smile. "I'm not asking you to think. Not right now." The way she said it, calm, confident, with just the hint of playfulness, disarmed him completely. Ethan felt like he was standing on the edge of something dangerous, but irresistibly magnetic. His instincts told him to run, but every nerve in his body screamed to stay. Her perfume enveloped him as she leaned closer, close enough that he could see the faint flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Close enough that he could imagine what it would be like if those lips pressed against his. Ethan's hand tightened around the edge of the file he still held, knuckles white. "This isn't safe," he managed to say, his voice low, strained. Isabella's laughter was soft, husky, and maddening. "No," she admitted, "but tell me, doesn't it feel alive?" And it did. Every cell in his body buzzed with electricity. Every breath felt sharper, heavier. He had never been so aware of someone's presence, so consumed by the nearness of another person. The silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Isabella's gaze flicked down to his lips just for a second, and when she looked back up at him, it was all the invitation he needed. Ethan leaned in before he could stop himself. Their lips met, tentative at first, then hungrier, as though the restraint had finally shattered. Her hand came up to the back of his neck, pulling him closer, deepening the kiss until his knees nearly buckled from the rush of it. For a moment, the world outside the office ceased to exist. There was only the warmth of her mouth, the softness of her touch, the wild thrum of adrenaline coursing through him. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Isabella's smile was different, now satisfied, a little wicked. "You see," she murmured, "not so frightening after all." Ethan's mind raced. He knew the danger. He knew if anyone found out, especially the CEO, it would be the end of everything for him. But standing there, looking at her, he also knew something else. He didn't want to walk away. Not tonight. And Isabella, watching him with eyes that seemed to see straight through his hesitation, knew it too. She placed the papers aside, completely forgotten, and whispered, "Close the door." Ethan hesitated for only a heartbeat before doing exactly that. The click of the latch echoed in the room, sealing them off from the rest of the world. What happened next unfolded in a blur of urgency and heat, of whispered words and stolen breaths, of a line crossed and burned behind them. It wasn't careful, it wasn't planned, it was reckless, impulsive, and utterly consuming. And for Ethan, it was the first time he felt both terrified and alive all at once. When the storm finally eased, the office was quiet again. The only sound was their breathing, slowly calming as reality began to creep back in. Isabella smoothed her hair with a practiced hand, her expression unreadable once more. "You'll keep this between us," she said softly, not as a question, but as a statement. Ethan nodded, his chest still heaving, his mind a whirlwind of guilt, desire, and disbelief. "Of course." Her smile returned, faint but genuine this time. She touched his cheek lightly, almost tenderly. "Good boy." Then, as if nothing had happened, she gathered the papers from the desk, adjusted her dress, and walked to the door. She paused, looking back at him one last time. "See you around, Ethan." And just like that, she was gone. Ethan stood frozen in the office, the weight of what had just transpired pressing down on him. He knew he had crossed into dangerous territory, one misstep away from disaster. But beneath the fear, beneath the questions and the guilt, there was something else he couldn't ignore. He wanted more. And he had a feeling Isabella did too.